Hello, in this video, we will introduce the for loop. We already know the while loop and do while loop. For loop has a very concise syntax for writing loops. Now, often when you write a loop, a lot of time, this is what you write. You have a control variable I with initial value. Now, this is why to test I with the end value. I is less than end value, so you're going to do this loop and then increment I by 1. So that is a typical pattern of a loop. A lot of time, this is very often, people forget this increment I plus plus. This will cause an infinite loop. Now we can write the code using the for loop to avoid this mistake. The for loop is this. You have for and 3 components inside the parentheses. The first is initialization. In the middle is the loop continuation condition. And after this, the last part is the actions performed after each iteration. You're going to perform this actions after each iteration right here. While loop, it is very intuitive. It reads very straightforward, very clearly. And for loop is not that intuitive for the beginners. But after you write for loop for a couple of times, you will begin to like it and you'll become very familiar with it. And this is actually a better way to write code in many cases. It is simpler. It can avoid mistakes. So you know it very clearly from this for loop. You see, hey, what is the initial value for I? What is the loop continuation condition right here in the middle? And what is you going to do after each iteration? So that is these are illustrating the key control of a loop and all in one line. So that is a real good way to write a for loop. It's a write a loop. It's a very, I think it's very effective way to avoid errors. Now this is the complete syntax. You see this is for loop for initial action, loop continuation condition, action after each iteration, and this is inside is one iteration of the body, so you're going to execute it. And this is the initial action is done once. And now you're going to check the loop continuation condition. If it's true, execute the body, and then afterwards perform the action after each iteration and go back to check the condition again if it's false, and that's over. Here's an example here is you have this is the for loop is for this I is initial value 0 and I is less than 100. You're going to perform this. Afterwards, I is incremented by 1. Let's look at this animation here. I'm going to have this is 1 and see what happens.
The loop initial action is performed once to declare and initialize I to 0. The loop continuation condition is tested. Since I is 0, I is less than 1 is true, the loop body will be executed.
Now, this condition is true. We're going to execute the body.
The loop body is executed to display welcome to C++.
Now, what is done after this? It's right here. It is the action after each iteration is going to be performed.
The action after each iteration is now executed to increment I by 1. The loop continuation condition is tested. Since I is 1, I is less than 1 is false. The loop is finished.
Now the loop is finished.
The loop is finished.
Now, there are many ways to write a for loop. In this for loop, you can actually have multiple initializations together. So here, I is 0, j is 0. You can separate it with a comma right here. And for this action, after each iteration, you can put many actions. And so this is I++, this is j++. Note that this is comma. So this semicolon, semicolon, so there's two semicolons. And the first part is initialization. It's done once before you test the condition. And so this is before you enter the loop, it's executed one time. So this part is the action after each iteration. This is done after every time, and the body is executed. Please note that you can write a for loop like this. This means here, in the middle here is always true. So this can be empty, and this also can be empty. And when this middle part is empty means this condition is true. So the same as this, and the same as using while loop, while true. That is all for this section on the for loop. We will have examples of using for loop in the next video. Thank you very much. See you on the next video.